I knocked on a door, and I just remember like just saying, I can't do it anymore. That's it. That's it. And like, just at that point, and man, it was tough.
Jason McAteer, are you ready?
No.
Don't worry. It's nice and gentle.
To begin with.
Always, that's the introduction. So every guest I've started, obviously I've done some research, but all of them are starting by introducing themselves to the audience in a few words.
As what? Introduce myself as what? Who I am?
Yeah.
I am Jason McAteer, ex-professional footballer who is on a learning curve right now, and at a bit of crossroads in my life. That's where I am right now.
Okay. Tell me about this time growing up. What was it like? School, sports, football, any other sports?
I was, for where I ended up at 20, as difficult as my upbringing was, I was probably in the perfect playground as such to aspire to the dream that I had. When you grow up in a household in Birkenhead, Liverpool, Merseyside, I think you're instantly born with an attachment to a football club because it is part of life. So you either are Tranmere Rovers, which is on the Wirral, or you're Liverpool and Everton. My family was a big family of Reds, so growing up, it was also always a Liverpool household, and plus Liverpool through the 70s and the 80s were extremely successful. So as much as we didn't get a lot of coverage, there was enough to keep your interest and create a hero, which was Kenny Dalglish. So just to put into context my upbringing, was I enjoyed my upbringing to a certain extent. It was a tough upbringing. There wasn't a lot of money in the house. It was probably a typical household for where we lived. It was a Thatcher government, which was a Conservative government, which meant, my dad was in and out of work. Money was tight, which meant, we didn't get the opportunities to go to the game. My first Liverpool kit, my mum made of curtain material, red curtain material. She made it on a sewing machine with a badge about that big, like that. So, that's how we grew up. I lived in a really nice community, which was, it was a terraced house, and everybody's front door was open. So as kids, we were always in each other's households, and if you overstayed your welcome, you were fed, and then kicked out to go and get a bath or whatever before school the next day. But football was, it's a cheap sport, isn't it? You need 2 jumpers for goal posts and a footy. And I lived between 2 parks. So there was always a kickabout. There was always people playing football, and there was always mischief to sort of get into. So from 7, up until at least 15, was very much the dream was to be a footballer. No academies. There was School of Excellence, which was Tuesdays and Thursday nights if you were lucky enough to be asked to go to a professional club.
And you did?
No. I had trials for Tranmere, Everton, Chester, and then Manchester United when I was 14. 3-day trial, halls of residence.
You would have betrayed Liverpool, your childhood.
Yeah. I was getting desperate, mate. I was getting desperate.
Very desperate.
I was at, the desperation was uncanny.
Imagine the slack you would have received at home if you would have signed for Manchester United.
I would have been banished.
Yeah, but you talked about being welcome in every household, maybe get a meal if you stay longer, playing with your friends in the park, going to school. So all of these things sound positive.
But there's a lot of negative as well.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, the negativity comes from your home life, where you find your dad out of work in a community where alcohol is a release. Too much alcohol then produces a character you don't like, and the household becomes a tough household to be involved in. And I was, being the oldest child, I was exposed to things I shouldn't really have been exposed to, and so that was tough. You know, my mum and dad split up when we were in that house, and you know, I had to take the lead on being the man of the house, really. And my mother was, I mean, she still is, you know, she's a fantastic person, but she would clean my boots. She would make sure I was on time. She had 4 or 5 jobs when my dad was out of work, you know, and I'd wake up in the morning at 7 o'clock to go to school, and she was just coming in from a cleaning job where she would go and clean somewhere and come home. She'd leave at 5, be back at 7, feed us, go back to work, you know. So, you know, those things were tough. It was really tough. And you know, when you go through, you know, that time where you're changing schools and you're missing out on trials, you just want your dad, really, don't you, to tell you it's going to be all right. And unfortunately, and I understand the situation now as I'm older and wiser, and I get it. It's difficult to understand, but you know, I lost a relationship with my dad, really, and I don't think I've ever got over that. And you know, I shared some bad times there as well.
Yeah. So you had to grow up quickly and work. So work, playing football.
Yeah.
How did it
happen?
Yeah.
So my nan bought me my first pair of football boots, a pair of Patrick Keegan Kid, which were like, I went to bed with them. I went to bed with them. I was mad, right? I've got this thing, and through this conversation, you'll get onto it. I'll tell you why in a minute. But I've got this thing where I take things to bed. So like,
things, not persons.
There's a time and a place for that.
All right.
But like, my first pair of football boots ended up in bed.
Okay, but wearing them or next to you?
No, just next to me.
Okay.
And then I'd wake up and they'd be there. And like, first paycheck from Liverpool, when it was in my bed.
No.
It was in my bed. Going back to my first job, my nan had a friend who owned a pub, and she asked if I could have because I was at college and I needed more money, and she said to her friend, "Will you give him a job as a glass collector?" So she said, "Yeah, sure." There used to be a guy who used to come into the pub, and he was a centre forward for a semi-professional team in Liverpool, and I was still playing Sunday league football. Saturdays I was playing. So just local teams.
Yeah, but it's like you play once a week and then you train twice a week.
Yeah, twice a week. No training.
No training.
No, just turn up on a Saturday and play.
Oh my God.
Turn up on a Sunday and play.
Right.
Manager ring you Friday. Can you play tomorrow? Yeah, I'm in. Okay, see you tomorrow. Crazy. And then yeah, so I'm back at the pub. College is finished. Signed on the dole, don't want to be on the dole, so go back to the pub. And then my uncle, so the guy in the pub, he's at Marine, and he says to me,
Marine's a football club.
Marine. It's outside of Liverpool.
It's an amateur club.
Yeah, towards Southport and Formby, amateur club, yeah. And they have the first team and they have a reserves. And he says to me, "Listen, do you want to come and try out? I've heard, you know, you're playing really well." I was starting to develop now. I'm now like starting to fill out. So I'm growing now.
You're playing as a midfield?
Right side, right midfield.
Right midfield.
Yeah.
Offensive or
attacking?
Attacking.
Yeah.
Attacking.
Up and down.
Right.
Great energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and quick. So, you know, I'm like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll come over. So he says, right, we train Tuesdays, Thursdays. First team, we train on this half of the pitch. Reserves train this half of the pitch. So, you know, I can take you and I can bring you back, so it's no problem. Okay. So I go, take the opportunity. I'm in the reserves, and we play Bolton in the January. And it was a Saturday morning. And Phil Neal was the manager of Bolton. It was against the A team, against Marine Reserves. And I had this game, scored a couple, set a couple up. It was like I was in the zone. And I come off this pitch, and it was just like I played no other game in my life. I remember it. And after the game, the manager comes to me, "You're brilliant today," and all that. He said, "Listen, Phil Neal wants to take your phone number. He wants to call your mum tonight. He wants to have a conversation with you at home tonight, because they've got a game and he's going to ring. It'll either be tonight or tomorrow." So I'm like, oh my God, like manager of Bolton, like this is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So I go home, Saturday doesn't ring, and then Sunday we get the call. My mum takes the call. Hi, Mr. Neal. It was like, you know, Liverpool as well, big Liverpool fans, a massive Liverpool player, most decorated Liverpool player ever. And it was like, we'd like Jason to come for a trial at Bolton, a week's trial. We want to have a look at him, good look at him, see how he fits in, and we'll see what happens. And then it was like, da-da. It was just that moment of, here's your opportunity, what are you going to do? So they arranged the week's trial a couple of days later, and Sammy Lee was an ex-Liverpool player. He was at Bolton, so they arranged for me, because Bolton, from where I lived to Bolton, was maybe over an hour away.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Sammy was living in Liverpool, so I went across them. I got a train. Sammy picked me up at the train station, drove me to Liverpool for the week's trial, and after 4 days, I get called into the office, and they went, "Here you go. Here's a contract till the end of the season."
Professional contract. The one that you slept with.
Yeah. £100 a week. I had that contract in my bedroom as well, on my bedside table.
Fast forward. You finally sign for the mighty Reds.
Yeah. Well, just to briefly touch on my Bolton career, Bruce Rioch put together a fantastic team, like lots of Scottish players, but players who probably faced rejection, never maybe reached the heights that they probably were at, always striving to be better. But we put together a really, really good team, or Bruce did, really good team. And we got promoted. Then we got we were a championship team. We made the League Cup final where we played Liverpool, and we also then got promoted into the Premier League.
What type of football are you playing?
So we were playing 4-4-2. I was in the middle, and I was the box-to-box player. Without sounding big-headed, I found it really easy. I was extremely fit. And I think because of the culture at the time, and the level I was playing, players were still drinking, and diet wasn't a big thing. So there's a lot of ill preparation going into teams, that went out and played. So I all of a sudden was like at this level, and they're at this level. So I found it quite easy.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm winning football matches, I'm scoring goals, I'm box to box, I'm making a name for myself. But also my shot window opened up. Yeah. So I played Liverpool in the League Cup final, and they classed it as my trial for Liverpool because a lot of clubs were watching us at the time, but Liverpool was showing a real big interest. And I got man of the match for Bolton. Steve McManaman got it for Liverpool. He scored the 2. We got beat 2-1. And then that was in the February-March time, League Cup final. And then the end of the season, we played in the playoff final, again back at Wembley. But I'd been playing for Ireland. So we won the playoff game, and now we're in the Premier League, and I'm playing for Ireland. And I'd been to the World Cup.
Wow.
I'd been to the World Cup the year before, which was just the best 6 weeks of my life.
Yeah.
God, what 6 weeks that was. If you said to me you could do any 6 weeks of your life again,
yeah,
I'd do that.
This one's
wouldn't be my kids or anything like that.
No.
The 6 weeks.
Not taking the family to Hawaii. It would be go back to the US.
I went with no expectations. I went as number 21. I think I was. I was never playing. I was going for the experience. I was going to the World Cup with this fantastic outfit. We've been in Italy 4 years previous. I'd watched it in a pub on a telly, and now I'm with them. It's like my learning curve went like that. And then Italy, Jack turns around with half an hour to go, says to me, "You're going on." I go on. I'm playing now Maldini, Baresi. I'm looking at these players like, and then I get on against Mexico. I set a goal up. I go on amazing cross, John Aldridge header, and then I start the game against Norway, and then I get on against Holland. But sadly, that's where the journey ended. So,
that's your summer.
Yeah.
And
so now I'm at the point of, we're promoted to the Premier League. I'm at Bolton, and I'm ready to move.
It's too small for me.
Yeah, I needed a big.
Yeah, you're ready. Yeah.
In '95, and Bruce Rioch leaves for Arsenal, which how mad's this, right? I found out this morning. Oh, you were there?
Yeah.
With Arsene.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, but Bruce and Arsene got interviewed for the job at the same time, and they chose Bruce, and Arsene went to Japan. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
And then Bruce rings me from Arsenal pre-season and says, "I want to sign you from Bolton." And I was like, "Listen, like, you know, something's going on," because I'd heard Liverpool were interested. I said, "I'll let you know." And then we start pre-season, and I'm driving in, and my agent calls and he says, "Kenny Dalglish has bid £9 million for you and Alan Stubbs. Turn the car around and go to the Haydock Thistle Hotel and meet Kenny. I'll meet you there." So we're like, wow. So we drive up and we go into the hotel, and Kenny's there with Ray Harford, and we sit down with Kenny, and I go into the meeting first, and Kenny's selling the team, and this is where I want you to play, and this is what we're going to do. And halfway through the meeting, my agent's phone goes off, and he picks the phone, he's looking, and he goes, "Kenny, can I take the call?" I goes, "Yeah, no problem." So I stay in the room. Agent goes outside. Agent comes back in. He says, "Listen, Liverpool want Jason for £4.5 million. They don't want Alan. So can we go and talk to Liverpool?" And Kenny went, "No, deal's off. Deal's done. Like, if you don't come with me now, sign, that's it." I went, "Kenny, come on." I says, "Liverpool." And he went, "Okay, go and talk to him."
Yeah.
So I went. I went
to make that choice, but
yeah,
it's Liverpool.
He didn't sign Alan Stubbs.
He didn't.
No.
Where did Alan go in the end?
Well, he stayed at Bolton, and then he signed for Celtic.
Right.
Signed for Celtic, yeah. So I went for talks with Liverpool that night, and again, Anfield, they're trying to tell me where I'm going to play and all this, and then they turn around and they say, "Right, we want to talk about finances, like about the contract." And I said to my agent, "This has got nothing to do with me. Just don't mess it up." And I went into the corridors, and I was looking at the trophies and all the pictures. I got called back in 5 minutes later, and the contract was done. And I went home and slept with the contract. And that was it. I was a Liverpool player.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
Liverpool. Dream come true.
Yeah.
From that journey.
So 5 years.
5 years.
So in 5 years, I went from Marine to Bolton, World Cup, Liverpool.
Did you dream about,
No.
going to Liverpool?
I got to be honest, I didn't have time to dream. It was just too quick. Just everything just was happening and at pace. I just didn't have time to absorb it. I was on this roller coaster and I just didn't want to get off. It was like I was playing unbelievably well. I was 10 foot tall when I go on. Like I didn't know what it was like to feel like I played bad. It was just, I was just always involved. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I was fit, young, wasn't drink. I wasn't interested. I was just living the dream, like being a football.
Yeah. So you signed for Liverpool. What's your best moment?
Liverpool.
At Liverpool, yeah.
Well, growing up, you know, I was always big on the FA Cup. You know, I never missed Grandstand, which was on the telly. You know, we started at 9 o'clock in the morning. You watched the match till 5:30. And it was Grandstand all day. It was brilliant. So I never missed that. And so the FA Cup was a big thing for me. So I always wanted to play in the FA Cup final at Old Wembley. So we reached the final, and one of the memories I have, talking of tickets, is when I was growing up through that 7 to 15 period you mentioned. When I was about 11, I played for a team of my friend. His dad set the team up.
Okay.
And his name was Chris Riley. And we lost touch as we grew up and we grew older. Chris, his son, my friend, went to London to work for a bank, but the dad always stayed in the area, but dropped out of football, never done coaching again. And when we reached the cup final, I got 2 of my tickets and I drove to his house and I knocked on his front door. I hadn't seen him for years. And I went, there's 2 tickets for the cup final. And he took them off me. He said, thanks very much, give me a cuddle. And then I went on my way.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So it was just little things, getting the opportunities to do things like that. You know, my mum, again, she'd been to Wembley for the League Cup, seen us lose. The playoff seen us win, which was great. So, and they enjoyed the day out. So it was another opportunity to go to Wembley, but it was against our arch rivals. So it was Manchester United.
Yeah.
So we knew it was going to be a tough day, and it turned out that way, to be honest. And there was a lot of mistakes on our part. The white suits was a big no-no, big mistake. And losing the game, as you know, any cup final, it's not the place to lose. It's a sad occasion, and that's how it was for me. It was sad.
Yeah.
But it was another box ticked.
Yeah. FA Cup final at Wembley.
Yeah. Liverpool. Yeah.
Yeah. The saddest moment
in my life or in my career?
No, we're still at Liverpool.
Saddest.
Apart from the day you leave.
The saddest day. So we were in Europe and we were playing, I'm going to say Valencia. It was either Celta Vigo or Valencia. And we'd had our pre-match in the hotel and we were packing up. I was rooming with Tony Warner, who was the reserve team keeper. I was packing up and the phone goes in the room, and you know what that phone call means. You pick it up and it's the gaffer. Come and see me. I'm like, put the phone down. Roy Evans. And Gerard Houllier had come into the team by this point, and it was a mess. And they were arguing and fighting, and the lads didn't know who to go to.
Roy and Gerard.
Gerard, yeah.
Well, okay. So arguing.
There was a lot. It was toxic. It wasn't working. So Roy calls me, and I go to his room, and he just opens up to me, and he just says, "Listen, I can't do it anymore. I'm leaving. You know, tonight I wanted you to play. Gerard wants Patrick Berger to play. I can't do it anymore. So I'm not fighting anymore. So Patrick's gonna play. You're on the bench, and you know that's what it is." I'm like, okay, but I could see in his face there was something not right. We play the game. I end up getting on. Whatever. We go back, and then 2 days later, Roy's not at training, and then there's a rumour going around he's resigned. And then next thing, we finish training, and then Roy pulls up in the car and he comes into the dressing room and we're all sitting around, and it was sad. It was just sad. It was the guy who washed the dishes and drove the bus and was physio and kitman and coach and had won everything, and to see him broken was just, and crying. He was crying and we were all crying, and it was sad. But I think for me it was the first time in my career, I think it was the first time that I realised that it was going wrong. It was just all going wrong. Everything had been right. Bolton, cup final, promotion, Liverpool, World Cup, international career. And then when he was talking, I felt like I'd lost this. I always felt Gerard, like I was not Gerard's man. Like a new player had come in, Rigobert Song had come in, and I was in and out the team, and I thought, if Roy goes, I know it's a selfish way of looking at it, I was looking at him broken, and that upset me and everything. But afterwards, maybe like a couple of weeks afterwards, I just felt I had no power then, and it was the first time in my career that I was like, it's not in my hands anymore. My dream's going to come to an end. I'm at Liverpool. I can't reach any higher. My life is perfect, and I had all my mates, Jamie, everyone. We were all close. We were all like, we were on the brink, I felt. And Gerard he burst that bubble. He just burst it, and it was that day when Roy got let go or resigned.
Yeah.
I just felt that's it. And it was. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
So who are you? At the time, you were blaming somebody in particular. Was it Gerard Rouillet? Was it?
Yeah, I as you get older, I keep saying, as you get older, you realise and you reflect, don't you? And you understand. I think people have tough decisions to make. I'm nothing to Gerard Rouillet. He doesn't owe me anything. I'm not emotionally attached to him, and he made his calls based on what he believed. I felt I had a future there. I felt I was good enough. I felt I was good enough to play. I felt I had lots to offer. I was in a very good position in my life, as in if I was fit and young enough. I knew the club inside out. I'd die for the football club. I didn't want to be anywhere else, and I just couldn't convince this man to put me in the team.
Yeah.
And I tried everything. I trained harder. I played for the reserves. I remember playing for the reserves and he didn't even turn up. And I said to Patrice, where's the manager? I'm
Patrice
here.
Berg.
Yeah. I'm here trying to play in the reserves to show him I'm good enough to play. He's not even here. I will do that. I will report back. Well, and it just went like that. And then then I got called in, and it's Blackburn have made an offer for £4 million. You're free to go and talk to them. And I thought, well, if you're letting me go and talk to them, you don't want me. So that Brian Kidd rang me. And Kiddo, I love Brian Kidd. He was such a great character. And he convinced me to go and sign for Blackburn. And mate, mad. So I'm doing the press conference. I signed for Blackburn, and all the press were there. And a journalist says, has it been hard leaving Liverpool? And I started crying.
Oh, you did?
I was crying. And the headlines on the back of the paper the next day was McAteers.
Oh my God.
I know. And I'm like that, rubbing my eye. That was the back page of the paper. And I just thought, what a start that is to my Blackburn career. But I just couldn't hold the emotion in. It was just, it broke me. Leaving Liverpool just broke me. And do you know what football become? A job.
A job.
It just become a job.
Passion's gone.
Gone. Yeah.
Completely gone.
Yeah. And then my private life started spiraling out of control. Me and my partner had a baby. My partner's parents died within 6 weeks of each other. Everything was just unraveling from the perfect storm. It was
so from that at Liverpool, I mean, you made it to the top, and you feel like this is going
like this
downhill, like
I'd gone like that, plateaued a bit, and then but in life, like a lot of, I struggled with my my partner's father dying. He lost his wife 6 weeks to septicemia, and then he got diagnosed with cancer.
You told me about.
And I remember looking at him while he was dying in hospital, and I remember thinking, I have all this power, I have all this money, I have all these people I can call, surgeons, doctors, all this money to help him, and I can't keep this person alive. I just can't do it. Yeah, that was hard. Yeah, that was difficult, that. And it kind of like I started, whereas everything was taking care of itself, I started questioning everything. Yeah. Like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? Like, and then it affects your performance. It was like, why am I playing like this? Why do I feel tired? Why is this? And everything was why. And then the knock on from that is your relationship suffers, and then you end up drifting apart, and then your relationship breaks down, and then you're at a point where you want to quit. You just want to quit.
Yeah.
And there's no help. There's no door in a football club you could knock on and say, I need help here. There's no psychologist. There's no therapist. No counsellors. You're on your own. You've got to figure it out. So yeah, that was a bad time.
Life goes on, the job goes on, game after game.
Days just go on, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to deal with that.
It was tough, mate. Yeah, it was a tough little spell. That.
You carried on, played.
Yeah, it's funny again. Life lesson. When I signed for Bolton, when I signed for Blackburn, at Liverpool, I'd signed a new deal before Gerrard had come in, and I was on 25 grand a week, which was astronomical. And when I signed for Blackburn, they said to me, "Listen, we can't afford 25 grand a week. We can give you 20." I was like, I can't lose 5 grand a week. It's a lot of money to lose. And I was like, and I went, do you know what? I'll do it. I'll sign. And I signed for. And I got a phone call from the chief exec, who was called John Williams, and he went to me, "Listen, I've never seen this before in football. I really appreciate it. I really, really do. Thanks very much." And I went, "No worries, John. No worries." And I went and played for Blackburn, and the manager changed. Brian Kidd went. Graham Souness came in. And when our relationship was just toxic from day one, and I was never ever going to play for Graham. Graham, like, I was in and out the team, and I ended up having a really frank conversation with Graham. It's like, you don't want me, I don't want to be here. Let's find a way of getting me out. I'll get out your hair. I don't want anything. Like, I don't want sign-on fees. I just want to leave. Like, let me go. And he was like, no. And Graham was trying to wangle deals left, right, and centre. And John Williams rang me. Bear in mind, this is maybe 3.5 years later, and John Williams rings me and he goes, I'll let you leave the football club because I remember what you did for me.
Right.
And he came back and repaid me. And within a couple of days, Peter Reid was on the phone at Sunderland, and Niall Quinn was there, and Kevin Kilban. They were my teammates with Ireland.
Yeah.
So he said, come up to the northeast and play for me. Really, you know, Peter, he's like, what a character. You can't help but love him. And he's like, you come play for me, lad. You know, I'll get you out of this mess. Come on, you know, bit of love and all that. I'm like, all right, Reedy, I'll come. Brilliant. And that was out. So then I moved up to the northeast, and do you know what? I fell in love with football again.
Yeah.
The fans, the area. It was just like, they're like Scousers. You know, they grow up the same way. Shipyards, comedy, football, life and death.
So you didn't have to watch the Sunderland Till I Die?
No, I knew what it was all about. Yeah. And Reedy was great. Reedy, I love Reedy. I was back in the Premier League. You know, it was just, my relationship had broken down. But you know, I was in Sunderland, and I was with a group of lads who, in a lifestyle that suited me for that time, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Relationship with the fans over there, the passion is quite incredible at Sunderland.
Crazy, yeah. It was, you know, it was up and down because they'd had real success with Reedy, 2 7th-place finishes and stuff, and they kind of lost their way a little bit. Finances were drying up, and football was changed. The evolution of football was catching up with them, and they were falling behind, and it was hard to maintain that success. And yeah, they kind of lost their way a little bit. Reedy got sacked, then Howard Wilkinson come in, and it was a bad little spell. And then Mick McCarthy came in. We dropped out the Premier League. I was getting older as well. I mean, while we're telling this story, I'm actually getting older and older. Right. It's like I'm not Peter Pan. It's like, you know, I'm struggling. So I'm picking up injuries now, and you know, I missed out maybe a good chunk of the season. We got relegated, and then I tried to help them get back promoted, which we managed to get to the playoffs, and then we got knocked out in the playoff semi. And then I was telling Glenn Oddle actually this story. So we're in the Championship, and I was on about 15 grand a week, and Mick called me in, Mick McCarthy, and he said to me, this is halfway through the season, here's a new contract for next season, 5 grand a week.
Whoosh.
So I went, Mick, I'm on 15. And he went, yeah, but we just can't afford 15, so I'll give you another year, but it's on 5. So I went, but I think we're going to get promoted. So that means I'll be in the Premier League on 5 grand a week. I went, I'm not playing for 5 grand a week in the Premier League. It's too hard. It's like, I want rewarded. So he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'll tell you what. At the end of the season, I'll renegotiate with you at the end of the season where we are. So he goes, okay. So we get knocked out the playoff semi-final, and he calls me into his office the next day, and I go in thoroughly expecting him to go, here's $5,000 a week. And I went, what are we going to do? $5,000 a week? And he went, no, the contract's not there anymore. So I said, what does that mean? And I'd never been in this scenario before where my contract had run down. I'd either been bought or sold. I'd never been in this situation. So I'm actually like, well, what does that mean? And he's like, well, there's no contract. There's no contract. And I'm like, well, does that mean I've got to sell my house and move and like find a football club? He's like, yeah. And I'm looking at this man who basically is like my uncle, because I've got this relationship from Ireland with him. I am like really close to Mick. Like
right.
We are like practically related. And I'm looking at him like now I'm like, he's my uncle. I'm like, but Mick. And he's like, I can't give you a contract. I haven't physically got the money to give you a contract. And I was like, well, I either have this fight and this argument, or I should stand up and shake his hand and say thank you and figure it out. So and that's what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sacrifice that relationship. So I stood up and I walked out, shook his hand, and I walked out. And I was like, what'd you do? What'd you do?
So you go home. You sit down.
So I had my house in Liverpool, and I had a house in Durham.
No, but after this conversation,
yeah.
What do? You go home?
I rang my agent.
Yeah.
I went, I've got no contract. What happens now? And he's like, well, we find a football club. I said, well, do I have to move? He's like, yeah, you've got to come home. Or we find you somewhere and you move there. I'm like, well, do I have to sell my house in Durham? I literally did not know what to do. And he's like, well, you can rent it or you can sell it or you can. So I was like, well, right, okay. I said, well, how'd you pack up? I said, well, we get removed. He had all the answers, but I just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
So I went back. So I went back home. Season had obviously finished. And he rings me and he goes, a week later, he said, listen, Leicester want to sign you. So I go, okay. So I drive to Leicester and I've talked with Leicester, Mickey Adams. And then I'm driving home after the talks. I'd had a medical, and Mickey rings me and he goes, you failed the medical. I'm like, oh my God. So it's like, what does that mean? He goes, well, we can't sign you, you failed a medical. I'm like, okay. So I ring my agent. I'm like, I failed a medical. He says, oh my God.
Yeah, but do you know what went wrong?
I'd had a double hernia.
Okay.
At Sunderland. And bear in mind, I played like 25 games on the bounce and the playoff semi-final, two-legged, extra time and penalties. So by the time I got to Sunderland, my groins were still flared up, but I was all right. Yeah, I was fit. I just needed, when you get older, you get an injury, you've got to maintain it and look after it. Otherwise, it'll just get worse. This is what I was doing. But I was fit, I was stretching, I was getting treatment, it was fine. So I couldn't understand why I'd failed. Anyway, I'd failed. So I said to my agent, I said, right, my hometown club is Tranmere Rovers. Brian Little's the manager of Tranmere. Ring him and tell him I'll sign for Tranmere for $2,000 a week.
What division is that?
League One. So he goes, no. I said, what do you mean no? He says, you're not playing for $2,000 a week in League One. I said, well, that's what I want to do. He goes,
really?
Yeah. So he goes, well, why? I said, well, I'm 34.
Okay.
I want to get into coaching. I might as well do it this way. I'm at home. I can see my child because he lives in the area. Yeah. 40 minutes away from where I live. So there's that. I like Brian. I get on really well with Brian. Nice. The club's lovely. It's my hometown club, is where I grew up.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. So Brian Little rings me and he goes, you winding me up? I went, no. I said, I'll come. So I went to see him and Lorraine Rodgers, the chairman, next night, signed, and that was it. I had three seasons at Tranmere. Yeah. Playoffs, lost in the playoff semi, got knocked out in the playoff semi.
But you're competitive, like you're fit, you play all the games.
I was a coach as well.
Coach.
So I don't know if you see this when you're with younger players and you've played at that level and you're playing at this level, they want to learn. Yeah. And they listen to you and they hang off every word, and I love that. I used to take them training and stuff, and I had a really good relationship with them, and the manager was like Ronnie Moore. He was clueless, just like, And he used to say to me, "What are you doing in training today?" And I'd go, "Right, I'm going to do boxes. I'm going to do warm up. I'm going to do boxes. I'm going to do some shadow. And then we're going to have a game."
So you're passing your coaching badges.
I'm doing my B license in Ireland at the time.
Okay.
So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to. You go, "No, you run them." Where do you want me to run them? He'd go, "Right, go to the woods, and I want a 8 mile run." I'd go,
"Wow,
I want to do this." He'd go, "No, run them."
Right.
I go, "Okay." So I get in the minibus, and I'd go, "Right, the gaffer wants me to run you 8 miles. This is what we're going to do. And this is the God's honest truth." I said to them, "This is on this particular day." I said, "I'm going to take you all to McDonald's, and we're all going to have a coffee or a hot chocolate and maybe like something to eat, but we're not having burgers tonight. You're going to have like an apple pie or something."
Okay.
And they were like looking at me like this, and I went, "If any one of yous, this gets back, if any one of yous opens your mouth, I'll get into trouble, I'll get sacked, and this will never happen again." I said, "The reason I'm doing it is because I don't think you need to run." And they were like, "Okay." And I took them all to McDonald's, and we had coffee, and I then drove to the woods, and we all drank the coffees in the woods, did a little walk around, back on the bus and went back. And honest to God, it was hilarious, right? We bought some bottles of water, and we were drenching each other. The lads were like sweating like on the tops and everything. And they got back, they're all soaked. And Ronnie thought that I'd run them. And do you know what? That never got back to me. Not one of them opened their mouth.
Until today.
Well, they all know now, yeah. And a lot of the lads who played are older now, and they tell that story. And for me, I gained the instant respect from the players.
Yeah.
I love doing it. I had a great relationship with them. And this brings me on to the next tough thing in my life. So I had a playing contract for Ronnie, which I was not really playing, but I was on his staff, so I had a staff contract. And the two of them finished at the same time.
Right.
So we got to the end of the season, and I went in to see Ronnie, and I said, "Ronnie, what's the story with the contract?" He went, "Well, there's no playing contract." I went, "Okay, so staff, what, they'll get another year? Staff, wages?" He goes, "No, there's no staff contract." So now I'm like that point again. What? Like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, there's nothing here." And I was a bit old and a bit, more wise to this situation, and I literally walked out the football club, and that was the end of my career. That was it.
Boom.
Done.
In the blink of an eye.
It was like, my metaphor would be light switch.
Light switch.
And I don't know whether you felt the same.
For me, it was different. I saw it coming because I went to play in India, Indian Super League.
Yeah.
Was 37, and my body felt hacking. So I was like, "It's tough. I can play a full game, but it takes a week to recover. Can't do that highest level. You need to play. I mean, in 2 days' time, you need to be training and be at full capacity." So, I saw it coming.
Was it your decision?
Yeah, it was my decision.
Yeah. So I think that's what's different. Mine wasn't my decision.
Yeah, it was my decision, and straight away, like a few months later, I was already working in a football club as a sporting director, so I didn't have time to wander and wake up every morning and say, what's happening today?
Yeah.
Nothing much. No coaching?
So I created a media contract, a media career, sort of at the back end. I really enjoyed doing work for like Sky and Setanta and other
Straight
channels.
away?
I was kind of finished as I was playing, because I was at Tranmere and I was a coach and I wasn't playing a lot. I had time, so Liverpool were playing the League Cup. Sky would go, will you do the game? So I'd go and do, because I had the time.
Right.
So I'd go and do it. And I got a real flavour for it, and I just liked the media. There was people in the industry I liked. It kept me involved. And it kept me involved at the highest level as well, because I felt, even though I was waiting on Liverpool games, it kept me at that level. So I enjoyed it, yeah. So I finished my career, and I went very quickly into a downward spiral. Like, depression set in almost instantly within 6 weeks of finishing.
We say that any athletes, when they finish, it's like a first death.
Yeah.
Did it feel like this for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like lost. 36. No direction. No teammates. No structure.
You're alone.
You're very alone.
Because you die alone. So effectively, if it's your first death,
yeah,
you are alone.
And that's how it feels. And I just like, oh yeah, it was horrible. Yeah. And then
to get up in the morning from your bed.
Yeah, getting up. I found myself. This might sound funny. It might sound maybe crazy, but I put myself in a bath all the time. I get up, I get in the bath, hot bath. I get out the hot bath, I go downstairs, walk around the house, I go back upstairs, run the bath, I get back in the bath. I was having like 3 or 4 baths a day, just getting in the bath all the time. It's crazy. Don't know why. There must be a reason. I don't know why. Some people think it's like that, the fetus being back in the water. That's how it got explained to me once by a counsellor, but I'm not sure it's that. Anyway, so
tough time.
Yeah. So then
you have to find a purpose.
Yeah, and I didn't have one. And
the media not enough.
I'd stop doing it.
Right.
They'd ring and I'd go, nah, I don't fancy it. No, I just couldn't. Like, I was in this. Do you know what I describe it like? Like being in the woods, trees everywhere, and you've got to get out, and you can't. Every time you go this way, there's a tree, or you go that way, and there's a tree, and then there's darkness, and then you might see a bit of light, and you go down there, but there's a tree, and you just cannot figure your way out of this thing. And my mates would ring me and they go, "Come for a night out, come for something to eat," and I go, "No." And every now and again I'd go and I'd put this like brave face on, like a clown, I'd be like, yeah, and then I'd get home, shut the front door, and it'd be like depressed. And then
because most of the guys that effectively suffer after at the end of the career, they don't get the opportunity you got, like being involved in the media, working with Liverpool and stuff like that. So even with that, you found it difficult.
Yeah.
That how deep it was.
I just had no purpose, mate. There was no structure. The TV stuff, I wasn't working every day of the week. It would be like maybe 1 show a week, or maybe 2 shows a week, or maybe this. It was like very sporadic. But
so many days without nothing to do.
Oh, days and days and days with nothing to do. Yeah. And I got the tunnel, which is kind of funny. I mentioned the tunnel at the beginning because this has gone full circle. That tunnel between the Wirral and Liverpool.
Your house.
My child, who I was keeping this relationship with under difficult circumstances, lived the other side of this tunnel. And I was driving through the tunnel, and it upsets me this because it takes me back to this moment because I can feel it. And as you go out the daylight into the tunnel light, it's like this kind of light. I remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to swing the car here and just end it. That's how easy it is. And I was fighting myself not to do it. I was fighting, going, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And I'd be like, no, do it, no. And I'd be fighting the steering wheel. And I remember coming towards the end of the tunnel, and it was like the daylight was opening up. And I remember coming out the tunnel thinking, thank God, just thank God. And I went to get my little boy. I took him, because I always used to take him to pictures. I took him to pictures, and I drove home. And I got to my mum. My mum lived 10 minutes around the corner, and I knocked on her door. And I just remember just saying, I can't do it anymore. That's it. That's it. And just at that point. And man, it was tough. Just like everything had gone. I don't half miss it.
But you're here now.
I miss everything about playing. Miss it.
You miss those days.
Yeah, just miss it.
Yeah.
Just like just running out. Just running out, just free on a footy pitch, no problems. Oh, I need to sort myself out here. No problems, nothing in life is a problem for that 90 minutes. It's just the best. It's just the best. And oh God, I miss it.
People think, oh, you've got the glory, you've got the money, but
no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't give you what you need.
No, it doesn't give you what you need.
And you know, football, I think the evolution of not just football on the pitch and the business side of things, but the mental side of it as well. It has to improve. It has to improve. It is slowly but surely getting there. The stigma's being broken down, but I think people find it difficult to understand the void that is actually left and where it can take you mentally. And I don't think it is catered for enough by football federations, by world football, and it needs to be addressed, to be honest. It needs to be addressed a lot better.
It's been addressed, but it's not taken care of.
No.
And people assume that because you've got money, you've got a situation early on, you've got your family, they think you can overcome any issues, but you're not ready for that.
No.
You're not ready for that because you've been to the highest in terms of achievement, and then suddenly you are nothing. You don't mean anything for anybody.
Yeah.
And they assume that this is your life, you have to take it, this is your thing, deal with it by yourself.
Yeah.
But you can't.
No.
You can't, because from the age of 11, 12, well, you went to a different
Path.
through a different
Yeah.
path. But for me, which is like a normal in France, from the age of 15, 16, I'm with an organization, whether it's the academy, then it's a club, you are part of a team. And when you're out of it, gone. And by yourself, it's impossible to deal with it.
Yeah.
So whether you play football or any other athletes, they struggle for sure. Most of them, most of us. Yeah. So you're not alone. Anytime you want to pick up the phone, drink coffee.
Yeah.
Golf, forget golf.
Yeah, I've heard you.
Paddle, we can.
Well, you know what happens to me on a paddle court? I get injured. The body's just not what it meant to be. Yeah.
But it was a pleasure to spend this hour with you.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much.